The courthouse steps were quiet that morning, too quiet. Not because the case wasn't important, but because it was too important. Security had locked down the block. Reporters stood behind barricades, their cameras pointed at the stone archway, like it was a portal to a reckoning. Helicopters hovered like vultures waiting for a fall. Inside, the air was thick. Marble floors, mahogany benches, but none of that mattered, not today. What mattered were the names, two of them. One known for silence, the other for truth. Barron Trump had always been the quiet one, the one people didn't talk about. The child who grew up in shadows while his father lit fires across the country. But today, he wasn't silent. Today, he stood tall, 19 years old, wearing a tailored blue suit, jaw tight, eyes cold. Today, he was the accuser. And across the aisle sat Denzel Washington. Not in a suit from the movies. Not in the tailored glory of Hollywood, but in a plain black jacket, calm, composed, his hands folded, eyes scanning nothing in particular, like a man who had seen too much and still chose peace. All rise, the judge entered. But the room was already on edge. Outside, the story had already exploded. Headlines screamed, Barron Trump sues Denzel Washington. Some called it a publicity stunt. Others whispered about legacy, about revenge, about silence finally speaking. But few knew what this case was really about. It started 3 weeks ago, a panel. Live TV, politics, truth, and everything in between. Denzel had been invited to speak on a segment called State of Fire, known for its brutal questions and no-cut broadcast. And he had gone off script, not with a rant, not with rage, but with something more dangerous. A truth wrapped in calm. He hadn't said Barron's name. Not directly, but he told a story, a hypothetical one, about sons who inherit power without earning it, about systems that protect the privileged even when they remain silent, about a boy who grew up watching his father bend truth into something sharp. And at the end, Denzel had said, sometimes silence is louder than the lie. It was just a sentence, but the internet turned it into a war. Memes. Clips, hashtags. Within hours, hashtag silence louder was trending. And in the middle of the storm, Barron Trump, the boy who had been untouched, decided to speak. Not in a tweet, not in a post, but with a lawsuit, defamation, character assassination, personal attack. The complaint was precise. The defendant, Mr. Washington, has intentionally damaged the character and future of the plaintiff, Mr. Trump, by implying malicious conduct and moral weakness. The internet lit up. Conservatives cried foul. Liberals screamed freedom. But beneath all the noise was something colder, something quieter. Fear. Because this case wasn't about reputation. It was about power. It was about who could speak and who couldn't, and what happens when silence stops being a shield and starts becoming a weapon. In the courtroom, the first hour passed in legal motions. The judge, an older woman with tired eyes and a spine of steel, let the attorneys go back and forth. Barron's team wore sharp suits and arrogance. Denzel's lawyer, Maya Brent, was younger, quieter. But her eyes were fire. The judge finally raised her hand. Let's begin. Opening statements. Barron's lead attorney, Thomas Kane, stepped forward. Slick hair, perfect tone. He walked like the room already belonged to him. Ladies and gentlemen, he began, this is not a case about politics. This is a case about principle. A young man's future was attacked. Not by gossip, not by rumor, but by a man with a global platform and immense influence. Mr. Washington, with all his awards and followers, decided to target a private citizen with reckless words. He paused, looked at the jury. This lawsuit is about restoring dignity, about drawing a line. Today we hold power accountable. He sat down, confident, smug. Then Maya rose. No podium, no theatrics. She walked to the center of the room and looked at the jury like she was speaking to each of them alone. My client did not speak lies. He spoke truth, not about a person, but about a pattern. He did not name anyone. He challenged a system, a culture, a silence that has protected those born into power while silencing those who aren't. She took a breath. Barron Trump believes that silence protects him, but today, silence speaks. The jury leaned in. The courtroom grew still, but Barron's eyes didn't move. He stared straight ahead, lips pressed. Not anger, not fear. Just something frozen. Then came the witnesses. First, a media analyst, breaking down how quickly the quote had spread. Charts, graphs, viral timelines. The judge allowed it. Next, a character. Witness for Barron, an old classmate. Spoke of him as kind, quiet, deeply thoughtful. Painted a picture of a boy misunderstood. The jury listened. Nodded. But the courtroom wasn't breathing yet. Then the judge called for recess. Outside, the chaos was worse. Cameras, signs, chants. Some screamed, "Free speech." Others yelled, "Justice." "For Barron." Inside, Denzel sat quietly in a small room with Maya. She looked at him. "You sure you want to go through with this?" He nodded. "You're not on trial for what you said. You're on trial for what you represent." He smiled faintly. "Then they picked the wrong man." Maya looked down, pulled out a folder. "We bring her tomorrow." "Are you ready?" Denzel leaned forward. "She's not afraid?" Maya shook her head. "No, but everyone else will be." Back in the courtroom, the judge reminded both parties that tomorrow's witness must be handled with care. "This is not a circus," she said. But truth rarely is quiet. The crowd didn't know who she was talking about. But Denzel did. So did Barron. Because deep in the shadows of the Trump empire, there were voices no one had heard. People who had seen things, stayed silent. Until now. And tomorrow, one of them would break that silence, and everything would change. The courtroom was already full by the time the doors opened. News vans lined the street. Satellites pointed to the sky. The city buzzed not just with reporters, but with whispers. Something was coming. Everyone could feel it. Inside, Denzel Washington sat quietly, same seat, same calm face. But something in his eyes had changed. The stillness from yesterday was gone. Today there was weight behind his silence, like he was waiting for something inevitable. Maya Brent sat beside him. Her fingers tapped the wooden desk, not from nerves, but from calculation. She wasn't just thinking about today. She was 10 moves ahead. Still, this next move. It wasn't in the playbook. Barron Trump sat across the room. Younger, but sharp. He wore a different tie today, darker. Maybe it was supposed to make him look more serious, more powerful. But power is strange. Sometimes it folds in the face of truth. And today, truth had a name. The judge looked over her glasses. "Call your next witness." Maya stood slowly. "Your Honor, the defense calls Eva Morgan." Barron's head jerked slightly. His attorney froze for half a second. A flicker of something unspoken passed between the two. Recognition, panic. "Eva Morgan?" the judge asked, eyes narrowing. "Yes, Your Honor," Maya said. "Former White House communications intern." A murmur ran through the crowd. Reporters leaned forward. Phones lit up. The name meant nothing to the public, yet, but to those who had been close to the Trump orbit. It was thunder. The back doors opened. She walked in quietly. No spotlight. No makeup, just a beige coat, neat ponytail, and a folder clutched tight to her chest. She looked young. Not innocent but tired. Like someone who had waited years for this moment. As she sat, she didn't look at Barron. Not once. She only looked at Denzel, and nodded. Maya approached the stand. "Miss Morgan, please state your name and occupation." "Eva Morgan," she said softly, "former intern at the West Wing." White House 2019. You were 18 then? Yes. And why did you leave after 4 months? The courtroom held its breath. Eva looked at the judge. Then at the jury. I was asked to leave because I overheard something I wasn't supposed to hear. Maya took a step closer. And who did you hear? Eva hesitated. Then her voice, low but steady, filled the room. Barron and his father. Gasp rippled through the audience. Maya kept her voice level. What were they discussing? Media manipulation, social control. How to reshape public perception. Barron's lawyer jumped up. Objection, irrelevant, hearsay. The judge held up a hand. Overruled, continue. Eva opened her folder. I took notes. Not because I wanted to expose anyone. I was scared. But I also couldn't forget what I heard. She unfolded a page. Yellowed with time. Maya glanced at the jury. Do you recognize that quote? Eva nodded. Barron said, we don't need to control everything. Just the narrative. People forget facts. But they never forget emotion. You could hear a pin drop. And when Denzel Washington made his speech last month. What did you feel? Eva's hands trembled slightly. I cried. Because someone had finally said the thing no one dared say. Maya nodded, then stepped aside. Your witness. Thomas Kane stood slowly. His face was red, but his voice was sharp. Miss Morgan, are you trying to make a name for yourself? No. You were fired from the White House, correct? I was asked to resign after leaking confidential notes. I never leaked them. I hid them. He stepped forward. So you admit you kept secret records during your employment? She didn't blink. Yes. Because I knew the truth would matter. Eventually. He paused. Do you have any communication with Mr. Washington? No. So how do we know this isn't a stunt? A setup? Eva looked up, her voice clear now. Because you can't fake. Silence. And you can't fake the look in someone's eyes when they've seen power used to destroy people. Denzel didn't name Barron. But I will. That moment cracked the room open. Even the judge looked unsettled. Outside, reporters scrambled. The name Eva Morgan shot across Twitter. Headlines changed midstream. Key witness breaks silence. Ex-intern drops bombshell. Inside. Barron's jaw clenched. His fingers dug into the wood of the defense table. Thomas whispered something in his ear. But Barron didn't respond. He knew something had shifted. Truth had entered the room. And it wasn't leaving quietly. Court recess. Maya and Denzel stepped into the hallway. Cameras flashed. Microphones stretched forward, but neither spoke. Eva walked out a few seconds later, surrounded by plainclothes security. No statements. No dramatics. Just the quiet power of a woman who had waited years to tell the truth. Across the street, in a tinted black SUV. A call was being made. Not by a lawyer, not by a publicist. But by someone in Washington. Someone who didn't expect Eva to testify. Someone who knew what else she might say. Because this wasn't just about a panel or a sentence on live TV. This was about history. And secrets. And legacy. And someone had just cracked it open. No one expected court to begin that way. Not the jury. Not the press. Not even Maya Brent. The courtroom was still buzzing from yesterday's shock. Barron Trump's testimony had cracked the case open in a way no one predicted. He had admitted guilt, not legal guilt, but moral responsibility. He had acknowledged silence. He had acknowledged fear. And fear, once named, becomes power for someone else. As the media devoured every second, Washington, D.C. began to tremble behind closed doors. Not just the White House, but the entire ecosystem that had protected the Trump name for years. If this courtroom crumbled, other cracks would spread. Fast. But no one saw what was coming next. That morning, as Judge Langley entered the courtroom, she looked different, less composed, more alert. She sat down slowly, adjusted her mic and said quietly, before we begin today's proceedings, I have been made aware of a development that must be addressed. Maya and Denzel exchanged a glance. Early this morning, the judge continued, a secure file was delivered to my chambers. It included surveillance audio obtained under emergency authorization. The courtroom froze. This file was forwarded by a whistleblower who requested anonymity and protection. A gasp moved through the gallery. Barron Trump lowered his eyes. Due to the weight of this development and its direct relevance to this trial, I will now play the submitted recording for the court to hear. In full, the judge looked to the technician. A screen lit up. Audio crackled. Then a voice, deep, familiar, undeniable, filled the air. Donald Trump. No introduction, no context. Just his voice. Listen, you need to get that folder out of the record. I don't care how. Use someone from the building. A clerk. Hell, send in legal. Just make sure the press never sees what's in there. Pause. If this Eva girl talks more, she'll bring the whole damn structure down. Barron wasn't supposed to get this public. It was supposed to be handled quietly. The Washington guy is loud. Too loud. Someone needs to shut him up. The courtroom sat in stunned silence. We can't afford cracks in the image. You understand me? If he wins this case, they're not just taking a shot at my son. They're trying to rewrite the last 10 years. Shut it down. I don't care what it costs. Click. The audio ended. A full minute passed before anyone spoke. Maya's hands remained still. Denzel didn't blink. Thomas Kane turned pale. Barron slowly rested his forehead against his palm, and the judge leaned forward into her mic and said, "Well, it seems the court just heard the voice of influence trying to erase the voice of truth." The courtroom exploded. Shouting. Confusion. Media ran to the doors. Cameras clicked. Judge Langley slammed her gavel. "Order in this courtroom." Maya stood. "Your Honor, the defense moves to enter the audio as official evidence." "Granted," the judge said. Thomas Kane stood, his voice dry. "Your Honor, the prosecution was not aware of that recording." Maya turned to him. "Of course you weren't, because it was buried. But truth doesn't stay buried forever." The judge nodded. "I'm suspending normal procedures. There will be a federal inquiry into this interference. And this trial just became more than a defamation case." Outside, chaos erupted. Trump caught interfering with son's trial. Leaked call changes course of Denzel Barron showdown. Presidential pressure exposed live in court. Across social media, millions replayed the audio within minutes. Hashtag surged. Hashtag truth over power. Hashtag leaked call. Hashtag they heard him. Hashtag foldergate. Meanwhile, in a back hallway of the courthouse, Barron sat alone with Thomas Kane. "You told me we'd win." Barron said quietly. "We had control," Kane replied, "until your father made that call." Barron didn't look angry. He looked hollow. "This was supposed to be my fight," he whispered. Back in the courtroom, the judge addressed the jury. "You are not only the audience of this case, you are its guardians. What happens in this courtroom will echo far beyond these walls." Maya rose again. "Your Honor, the defense calls its final witness." Gasps rippled again. People whispered, "Who else could she possibly bring?" But no one knew that Maya had held this card from the very beginning. A final testimony. Not from a victim, not from an insider. But from someone who had remained silent for far too long. The defense calls Lavra Washington. The room stopped. Breathing. Every neck turned. Denzel looked down briefly, then up, eyes glistening. From the back, a woman in her 60s stepped forward. Elegant, graceful, no flash, no fame. But she carried weight. The kind of weight you can't buy or fake. The kind of weight only truth gives. "Please state your name," Maya said. "Lavra Washington," she replied. "And your relation to Mr. Washington?" "I'm his wife." 32 years, Maya smiled gently. "Mrs. Washington, why are you here?" Lavra took a deep breath. Because the man being dragged through this courtroom didn't say what he said to attack anyone. He said it because he knows silence too well. The room quieted. He knows what it means to stay quiet in rooms full of injustice. He knows what it's like to be told to smile, stay polite, and let the system work, even when the system works only for a few. Maya stepped closer. Why did he speak now? Because he saw history repeating itself. He saw a younger generation being taught that silence is strength. And he couldn't watch that happen again. She looked directly at Barron, and maybe, deep down, your silence wasn't evil. Maybe it was fear. But now you've heard truth, and you have a choice. She paused. We all do. Outside, the crowd grew even larger. Thousands gathered with signs. Some for Denzel, some against him. But all waiting. Watching. Because this trial wasn't just about a man or a boy. It had become a mirror showing everyone their reflection. As the judge called for a final recess before closing arguments, Denzel stood alone at the window. Maya joined him. You okay? She asked. He's just a kid, Denzel said softly. But that name. It's a cage, Maya nodded. And you just helped him find the key. The next morning came with storm clouds. Not in the sky, but in the media. Every channel, every headline, every podcast. Eva Morgan drops courtroom bombshell. Was Barron Trump hiding more than silence? Denzel Washington's defense just changed the game. It had been just 12 hours since Ava's testimony, but already people were choosing sides. Some called her brave, others called her a traitor. Some questioned why she kept the folder hidden for so long. And others wanted the folder gone. Inside the courthouse, Maya Brent felt it first. The moment she stepped through the side entrance, a security guard approached. Unusual, even suspicious. He leaned in and whispered, Miss Brent, the folder, it's missing. Her stomach dropped. What folder? She asked flatly, even though she already knew. The one submitted for evidence. Eva Morgan's file. Someone checked it out. Who? Maya asked sharply. The file log shows it was signed out by a court clerk. Which one? He looked at her and shook his head. That's the thing. The name doesn't match any registered clerk. Maya didn't speak. She just turned and walked faster. She found Denzel already seated in the waiting room outside the courtroom, reading a newspaper headline with his face on it. Again, she sat beside him and said quietly, They took the folder. He didn't react. He just nodded. They're panicking, he said softly. Maya nodded too. That folder had the original notes. Ava's handwriting, dates, quotes, everything. Do we have copies? Maya gave a tight smile. Of course we do. Digital scans, time-stamped, cloud-stored, encrypted, redundant. But the originals. Disappearance proves something else. That it's real, Denzel said. Yes, Maya said. And they're scared it's going to open more than just this case. Back in the courtroom, the judge entered, her expression unreadable. The prosecution team looked stiff. Barron sat unusually still, his jaw clenched. Something had changed. Even Thomas Kane, his sharp-tongued attorney, seemed restrained. Court is now in session, the judge said. Before we proceed with further witnesses, there's a matter the defense has brought forward. A missing piece of physical evidence. Maya stood. Your Honor, the defense's submitted folder item Exhibit 4A has disappeared from the evidence room. This is not only a violation of court security, but a direct threat to the integrity of this case. The judge's face hardened. Are you suggesting foul play? I'm not suggesting, Maya said. I'm stating the checkout was fraudulent. The clerk doesn't exist. Gasps echoed across the room. Thomas Kane stood. Your Honor, the prosecution had no access to that folder. We are not responsible for its chain of custody. Maya turned to him slowly. But you're responsible for suppressing truth. And someone's making sure that truth never sees light. The judge held up her hand. Enough, she turned to the bailiff. I want security tapes pulled, entry logs audited. And I want to know if this court has been compromised. Then she looked at the jury. Ladies and gentlemen, she said, what you are witnessing is more than just a defamation case. It's a test of truth, and truth must be protected. Outside, the tension had thickened into something heavier. Darker whispers of cover-up floated through the halls, but the real explosion happened. Midday during lunch recess, when a video clip dropped online. Someone had leaked footage from the courthouse. Security camera. It showed a man in a brown coat entering the evidence room after hours. No badge. No ID. He moved like he belonged there. He left with something under his arm. And then he vanished. Social media exploded. The clip hit 8 million views in 1 hour. Hashtag trended worldwide. Hashtag missing truth. Hashtag Foldergate. Hashtag protect Denzel. Hashtag Trump trial twist. When court resumed, the judge's tone had shifted. Until further notice, she said, this court is under lockdown. No new personnel allowed near evidence. Anyone caught tampering will face federal charges. Then she looked at Maya. Double quotes continue. Maya stood. Your Honor, I'd like to recall Eva Morgan. This time, Eva walked in stronger. No fear. Just clarity. Maya approached the stand. Miss Morgan, did you keep other copies of your notes? Yes. Where? In 3 different cloud storage accounts. I've shared them with my legal counsel. Were those files altered in any way? No. I also uploaded the full document to a blockchain timestamping service 6 months ago. The jury blinked. Maya smiled. In other words, Miss Morgan secured the truth. Long before she ever stepped foot in this courtroom. Eva nodded. I knew one day someone would try to bury it. Maya turned to the jury, and now they have. Meanwhile, across the courtroom, Thomas Kane was whispering again. Barron was sweating. Not visibly, not like fear, but like pressure. He leaned forward and said something that surprised even his own attorney. What? Thomas asked, eyes wide. Barron said. It again, firmer this time. Put me on the stand. The courtroom shifted again. Maya didn't flinch. But Denzel's eyes sharpened. Barron Trump was about to testify. This wasn't part of their plan. This was desperation, or something worse. Barron took the stand quietly. He adjusted the mic with steady hands, but his voice cracked on the first word. My name is Barron William Trump. Thomas stood before him, adjusting his tie. Barron, tell us why you brought this lawsuit. Because I was accused, Barron said. Not by name, but by implication. And how did that affect you? I became a joke. People mocked me. They questioned who I was. But did you do anything wrong? Barron looked at the jury. No, he said softly. Not directly. But maybe silence isn't always neutral. Thomas blinked. Even Maya blinked. Denzel leaned forward slightly. Barron continued. I grew up in rooms where things were said that should never be said. I watched people bend truth into weapons. I didn't speak up. I let it happen. The courtroom was stunned, but when Mr. Washington said what he said, I felt attacked because it hit too close to home. Thomas tried to recover. So, you stand by this lawsuit? Barron hesitated. I thought I did, but now I'm not sure. Maya stood slowly. May I cross-examine? The judge nodded. She stepped to the center. Mr. Trump, are you telling this court you felt guilt? Barron looked down. Yes. But instead of addressing that guilt, you sued the man who voiced it? He didn't answer. Maya stepped closer. Do you believe truth should be silenced? Barron's voice was low. No. Do you believe silence is always innocent? No. Then why did you sue him? Barron stared at Denzel. Because I was afraid that he was right. A wave moved through the courtroom. Even the judge leaned back in her seat. Maya's voice softened. Thank you. As Barron stepped down from the witness stand, the air in the room had changed again. This time, it wasn't tension. It was truth. Raw, heavy, undeniable. The judge recessed court for the day. Reporters swarmed the hallway. Outside, the clouds broke open, and light finally poured through the stained glass windows of the courthouse. And somewhere in a secure location, the real folder still existed. But now it wasn't needed, because the most powerful evidence had just come. From the one person who was supposed to bury it, the plaintiff himself. The air was different now. Not lighter, not heavier. Just still, like the courtroom itself knew the weight of what had happened. Judge Langley entered with quiet purpose. She didn't need to slam the gavel. No one was talking. Not even the press. Every eye was fixed on her. Every breath was held. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury," she said, "we will now hear closing statements." Maya Brent stood. She didn't walk to the podium. She stood beside Denzel. She looked at the jury like she was speaking to her own family. "You've heard enough words. Enough noise. Enough spin. But this was never about a sentence on television." She paused. It was about silence. How it protects power. How it hides truth. She glanced toward Barron. But something happened here. Something we rarely see. Someone changed, in real time, in front of the world. She let the silence hold. Denzel Washington spoke out. Not to destroy, but to reveal, to awaken. And because he did, others followed. Eva, Lavra, even Barron. Her voice softened. "This is not a courtroom anymore. It's a mirror. And today, we get to decide what we do with what we see." She stepped back, calm, complete. Thomas Kane approached next, slower than usual. Less fire in his stride. "This case began as a defensive character," he said. "My client felt targeted, humiliated, accused." He looked at the jury, but his eyes didn't hold the same sharpness. Barron didn't ask to grow up in the spotlight, but he was born into it. And silence, it became his shield. He turned slightly, maybe. That silence hurt more than helped. He looked at his client. And maybe this case wasn't just about defamation, but about reckoning. Then he surprised everyone. "I leave this in your hands. Not to protect a name, but to protect what matters more." He sat down. Barron didn't move. The judge gave final instructions to the jury. They left the room in silence. And then the world outside exploded. Thousands waited outside the courthouse. Some shouting, some praying, many just waiting. Live feeds, press panels, digital countdowns. Inside, the minutes passed like hours. Maya leaned back, head tilted, eyes closed. Denzel stared at the ceiling, lips pressed, hands still. Barron sat alone. No father beside him. No calls from campaign handlers. Just a 19-year-old kid facing the fire. He pulled out a note. One he had folded and refolded since last night. Just 3 lines. Handwritten, barely legible. "If this gets worse, stay quiet. You owe the name more than yourself. They'll never blame me, only you." The note had no signature. But he knew exactly who wrote it. And now, he wanted nothing more than to tear it in half. After 6 hours, the jury returned. 12 people. 12 decisions. 12 hearts changed by truth. The courtroom stood as they filed in. The foreman, a woman in her 40s with tired eyes, held the paper in her hands like it weighed 1,000 pounds. The judge nodded. "Have you reached a verdict?" "Yes, Your Honor." The paper was handed forward. The judge opened it, scanned it, didn't flinch. Then she looked up. "In the matter of Trump v. Washington." Everyone leaned forward. "We find the defendant, Mr. Denzel Washington, not liable." Gasps, cheers, some cries. And in one corner, silence, but not the guilty kind. Not the kind that follows something sacred. Truth. Maya exhaled. Denzel gave a slight nod. But Barron Stood, he turned to the judge. "Your Honor," he said softly, "may I speak?" She hesitated, then nodded. Barron faced the courtroom. "The cameras. The country. I brought this case because I was angry. But really, I was afraid. Afraid of what would happen if I faced who I really was behind my name." His voice shook. "But now, I'm more afraid of becoming a man who hides from truth." He turned to Denzel. "You didn't destroy me. You saved me." Denzel's eyes softened. No words. Just a quiet nod. The judge dismissed the jury. Court was adjourned. But the story wasn't over. Outside, reporters begged for comment. Maya smiled gently and said nothing. Denzel raised one hand, smiled, and walked through the crowd without a word, because some truths don't need a microphone. Some victories don't need a stage. Meanwhile, in a penthouse far from the courthouse, a phone rang unanswered. Donald Trump sat watching cable news with the volume off. He didn't blink. He just rewound the leaked audio clip again and again. And again. Later that night, Barron posted a message. No caption, no photo. Just text. "Truth doesn't destroy legacy. Hiding from it does." The.T. went viral within seconds, and in a quiet corner of a small apartment, Eva Morgan cried alone, not because she was scared anymore, but because she wasn't. Days had passed since the verdict, but the world hadn't moved on. America wasn't just watching anymore. It was reflecting. This case had started as another legal drama, another news cycle. But it ended as something else entirely, something rare, something raw. A public trial turned into a private awakening. And the final moment hadn't even happened yet. Denzel Washington had disappeared after the trial, not into hiding, but into peace. No press tour. No interviews. No talk show appearances. Just quiet. When asked why, Maya Brent gave one answer to every reporter. He said what he needed to say in court. The rest is yours to hear. But America wanted more. Not from Denzel. From Barron. And then came the letter. Handwritten. Delivered to every major news outlet. Sealed with no signature, just the initials, B.T. But it didn't stay private for long, because truth has wings, and this one flew faster than anyone expected. I sued a man because I thought he attacked me. But the truth is, he held up a mirror, and I wasn't ready to see my own reflection. I was born into a name, a brand, a wall. I learned to smile, to nod, to stay silent. I thought silence was survival, but silence, when worn too long, becomes a cage. Denzel Washington broke that cage with words, and I thank him. To every person raised in a world where truth feels dangerous, may you find your voice before it's too late. BT Cable News paused. Talk shows cut segments. Social media froze, because no one had expected it. Not this level of honesty. Not from him. But the truth had changed him, and now he was changing others. In a university lecture hall, a law professor paused his lecture to read the letter aloud to his students. In a church in Atlanta, a preacher quoted it during Sunday sermon. In homes across the world, parents read it to their children. And then the final moment came. Not in court, not online. But on a small stage in Los Angeles. An award ceremony. Not for movies, not for politics. But for integrity in public storytelling. Maya Brent was called to the stage. But she wasn't alone. Denzel walked beside her. No suit, no spotlight swagger, just stillness. The host handed over the mic. Maya looked out at the crowd. I'm not here as a lawyer tonight. I'm here as a witness to what happens when we stop protecting silence and start protecting truth. Then she stepped aside. Denzel looked out at the audience. Then, surprisingly, he stepped away from the mic and waved someone forward. A hush fell across the room. From the side of the stage, Barron Trump walked out. No security, no speech in hand. Just a young man with the weight of a name on his shoulders and something greater in his heart. He walked To Denzel, the two faced each other for a long moment. Then, without words, Barron dropped to one knee. Not in shame, in honor. He took Denzel's hand, and the room, Hollywood, politics, media, all stood. Not in applause, but in silence. Because that moment didn't need noise. It needed memory. The next day, the image went viral. Not as a meme. Not as mockery. But as hope. A young man raised by power kneeling to truth. Across the country, schools added the trial transcript to their civics curriculum. Law students wrote papers on Washington v. Trump and its impact on public speech. And the nation, though still divided in so many ways, found one rare thing to agree on. Sometimes, the most powerful voice in the room is the one that dares to listen. Denzel Washington went home that night to a quiet porch, a cup of tea, and his wife Laura sitting beside him. She smiled. "You did it." He looked up at the stars. "No." "He did." She squeezed his hand. "You just lit the match." And far across the city, in a dim room, Barron sat at a desk. His phone buzzed with thousands of messages. He ignored them. He picked up a pen and began to write again. This time, not for the media. For himself. Because legacy isn't what you inherit. It's what you choose to leave behind.